Welcome to another edition of the Traveling Frog podcast. It's a long story. Trust me, you don't want to know. I like to have a conversation with my friends and just reminisce, I guess you could say, in the good old days. My guest today is Tyrone Edwards, one of the best cameramans I've ever met in my lifetime. And I know we cameramans don't like to get, like that. But you were one of the best cameramen that CNN had, and to this day, you are seriously respected in our network of cameramans. I mean, if you mention Tyrone Edwards, people know who you are, man.
Well, first of all, I think whatever respect I have, it's because of the work that I did, and the work that I did was really opportunities that I got. So anybody else who would have gotten all of those opportunities would have that same level of respect, I think. So it wasn't me, it's just that I did one shoot and they were happy with it. They sent me to another one and another one and another one and another one, and I just kept going.
I think that you were always there to help us. You were always there to support us. Coming from CNN Espanol shooter, we were like, the little kid on the block.
So when did you start?
Oh my God, I started in 89, 90. My first trip was Bush 44 to South America to get ready to go to Desert Storm.
Okay, so I started in 82. The network was 2.5 years old at that point. I mean, I had worked in local TV, and I was making a lot of mistakes, but I was very lucky that the people I was making mistakes in front of were very kind, like Mike Betcher. Very, very kind. And encouraged me told me what the right thing to do. I was doing what we did in Rockford, Illinois, 109th Market. And now I'm in El Salvador with Betch as a sound man, carrying a heavy deck. Willis Perry was the cameraman. And they both were strong with me about when I did something wrong. And they knew that I wasn't doing it wrong because I was just being lazy. I think they realized that I didn't know that was the network way to do it. I mean, how do you know but somebody to tell you, right? And so I was doing the best that I could, and I think they saw that in me and encouraged me and taught me and guided me, and I was very lucky for that. And because of that, Mike Betcher was, a CNN day one guy, a great guy. I love the guy. I love him to death. And Willis is still around. I think Willis was a day one guy also. I'm pretty sure he was. Betch was based in D.C. I was in Atlanta. And so when Betch went back to Central America, he knew Ed Turner from Oklahoma stations, working together. And so Betcher made it work that I could come back because he liked the team, Willis, he and I.
Do you think that we were just in the right place at the right time in the world of television news?
I was. Look, if I'd started and worked in the Chicago Bureau, would I have had the opportunities in 1982 that I had in the Atlanta headquarters? And I don't think I would have, because obviously a bureau covers their specific area, and Atlanta at that time covered everything. That I didn't obviously double cover what the bureaus did in their areas, but I think so. I wouldn't have gotten as much notice in a smaller group of people.
Which one of the stories, and you've been through a lot, and this is probably a hard question to answer, but I know which one is mine. Which one of the stories that you cover would you say was the most complex, difficult one?
In what way?
Technically wise, technology wise. Where did you guys suffer the most trying to transmit? The cars would break down. Your camera would malfunction.
Antarctica was the hardest for gear because and I was literally sent there. It was for the science unit. And I was sent there. It was 2 cameramen, Rick Blackburn and myself, with Charles Crawford as the producer. And I was there primarily to be the guy to keep the gear alive, because I had had experience working in engineering. I was working in the field engineering shop, and so I was kind of there to. And I'd worked all over the world, fixing stuff, when it broke, as happens. At that time, this was 1987. Gear was very mechanical. You could open up a record deck, and you could see, did it thread all the way through or not. If it didn't thread all the way through, a lot of people couldn't figure it out, but I could at least figure out it's because of this or because of this. And so, mind you, that we did not take the gear that we were using at CNN at the time. We actually took loaner cameras from Sony. We took the Betacam one-piece cameras.
That was when we were making the transition.
Thinking of making the transition, but we knew that an umbilical cable from the camera to the deck would not work. It would freeze. And those connections would be really hard in that environment. So, for example, in Antarctica, it's the largest desert in the world. People think it's cold, and it is cold. It wasn't that cold. It was, but it wasn't on the ice edge where we were most of the time. It was very, very cold, 75 below at the pole itself, with a 75-mile-per-hour wind. So it was really hard at the pole. We were only at the pole for about 24 hours. We got this camera cover that was supposed to be heated. It ended up being, it ended up not working at all because the wind was so strong. It just blew off any heat that was coming off of it. It did not work at all. Batteries you had to keep inside your jacket. And so every time I'd go to shoot something, there was a battery on the camera, obviously, but even the cover that was battery operated, I had to wear a battery belt to run the cover. And so I'd have to always plug things in to, keep the batteries warm. That's what we did. So.
Going into a more personal story.
And we had to strip out a lot of grease from cameras and lenses because grease would freeze. So that was an environmental thing. We knew the problems going in and had to make some things, make it work for that harsh environment.
What happened in Baghdad? In Iraq, you got arrested working for CNN.
It was actually not in Baghdad. It was south of Baghdad. But yeah, we got taken by the Republican Guard, but we don't have to talk about that.
Come on, those are the stories people want to hear.
No, they're not. Yeah.
So I am not even going to touch Haiti.
No, you can talk about that. Baghdad was a situation where, look, when I learned to cover dangerous assignments from Mike Betzer, who said once we all know that each other's not just going to freak out when a car backfires, then we know that we know what we're in. We know what we're dealing with. We know that there's dangers. But also, he said, I never want to come home either having gotten myself killed or one of you guys killed or injured. And if we don't go in there and get the story and come out, what's the point of going in there? So that's where I learned it from. So we always had a discussion. When it was something really dangerous, we always had a discussion. Are you willing to go? Should we go? Should we not go? And what happened in Iraq, southern Iraq, was not, well, I thought we were having the conversation. We were not having the conversation. So we ended up going into an extremely dangerous situation that we should never have gone into.
Yeah, I've been in situations like that.
It's the reason that we were the only idiots to go in. I was dealing with a sat phone. Back then, a sat phone was a 27-inch suitcase with a big umbrella that you had to point at the Indian Ocean. But you had to run that whole thing off the car inverter, which means you're clip leading the inverter to the batteries of the car. The car had to be running, the truck had to be running to power the inverter to power the sat phone. And so while everybody was having the conversation, I said, look, I'll go in if we all go in. And as it turned out, we were the only ones to go in because everybody else realized it was dangerous. So that was not a good situation for the network. That's not a typical situation.
You remember the days when we had to travel with 15 cases of gear?
Yeah.
Just to make it work, and we still had to go to a TV station and climb 5 stairs with a 35, 40-pound Betacam to transmit.
Yeah.
Those were the days, weren't they?
I mean, it had its challenges, I always hated feed time because something would go wrong. It just was never stress-free. It was always, I don't know, it just seemed like, you had one shot and a certain window of time, and it was not a large window of time, to send everything you've done that day. And a lot of the times, in the field where we didn't have the benefit of having an editor, it wasn't a cut piece. It was feeding raw. Like, not raw, but feeding a rough cut that you did between a 110 and a 50. And, just sending them the elements they needed to have, sending them the track, feeding it in. And, if you were lucky, you were able to refeed something. But the windows were short. Satellite time was expensive. Or if a lot of times we were feeding on somebody else's bird. So, if one of the other networks booked a bird, then we'd jump on it. But we could only have what time they had left over because they were going to use it and use it and use it. Of course, you didn't paid, but we only had what time was left.
Yeah.
So you better make it happen.
And today you can do that from an iPhone.
Yes. There's a lot of ways to transmit. Yes.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I walk around with a little backpack called Live View. You have one of those. You convinced me to get the Live View. Remember we had that conversation a couple of years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah. He has actually made a big difference.
It's pretty remarkable. I remember back when we had satellite trucks in the early 80s, but we didn't have what was called Sky Switch, that we could get IFB from through the sat truck. The sat truck could send out audio and video, but we would park the sat truck close enough to a payphone and use the acoustic coupler and put it on the phone and dial up an 800 number for IFB, and we'd be telling people like, yeah, we're gonna use that phone all day long. There were no cell phones.
No.
There was no nothing. So
But
we'd run a long cable to the truck, and that's how we did IFB.
You have to be careful with the Live View sometimes. I've had a situation where, because I live in Texas, if I get too close to the river, it thinks it's in Mexico.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's happened already. I got on a boat, on an airboat on the river, and I was live transmitting on the boat on the river, and then the boat pilot went a little bit towards the Mexican side, and we lost connection.
It just goes off?
Yeah, it just dropped. It dropped because I guess he went into some kind of roaming, welcome to Mexico kind of thing.
Yeah, the only time I've used Live View overseas was when I did all the features for Fox Sports for the World Cup in 2018, and that was a Fox Live View that they had assigned to me because it had unlimited windows to feed, and obviously it was set up to work in Russia.
How did working as an international news cameraman shape the way you see the world? Because I work with local shooters, and they have no clue of what I don't want to sound bad or anything like that, but it's just sometimes I talk to shooters and they live in their little cluster.
I think that's more and more the case now with the newer generation of crew. Back when we competed with each other, but we also helped each other. We were all in the same mess together. If you're in El Salvador getting shot at, you're in El Salvador getting shot at. It doesn't matter who's paying your bills. And if we had equipment problems, we'd help somebody out. Like, I got a spare mic. You need a battery? I got a battery. We still do that.
Someone once said to me, and I think it was in El Salvador that said it to me. When we're on the streets, we're all soldiers of the same army. Let the generals battle it out. And that philosophy stuck with me because of what you just said. You know, if I saw someone from NBC, CBS, ABC, BBC, and their camera was down and they needed a brick, I would hand over a brick. You know,
Yeah.
and or vice versa.
Well, they were friends.
They were friends.
You know, we all worked together. We took care of each other, and we also had our responsibilities to do our work. I mean, I remember plenty of times on the campaign plane, back when we had campaign press planes, I would be fixing somebody's equipment because I had the ability to fix stuff, and we just did that for each other. I mean, it had nothing to do with helping anybody get better coverage than we got. When it came time to work, we all were competitive and we did our jobs. We did our jobs, you know, the best we could for our networks. But when it came time to help somebody, we're all crew.
You just said campaign planes. How many presidents?
How many presidents?
How many presidents have you covered? How many presidents have you been able to be around?
Every president since Reagan. But, and President Carter, but not when he was in office.
Every president since Reagan. Wow. That's a lot of presidents.
Yeah, don't tell me my age.
Dude, we're about the same age. What are you talking about?
I think I'm a lot older.
No. But yeah, so I wanted to do this because I wanted to talk to my friends and my colleagues for stories like that, for stories that like you've told me about Antarctica. Now there's one particular story that it's in my head and it's always been in my head. And it's a moment in time where I walked into a hotel in Port-au-Prince and you were sitting by yourself at the edge of the pool. You were in your own world at the moment. Do you recall that day and why you felt the way you felt?
Yeah. I was trying to hide from you. That's why I thought you wouldn't come out to the pool. No, I'm kidding. No, that was a day.
I was actually told to leave you alone. Alec Miran, I think said
that was a hard day. That was a hard day. You know, so often back when we didn't have cell phones with cameras in our pockets, there was a lot less capturing of moments as they happened, right? Because now, I mean, you can, you know, if something happens, everybody's going to take their cell phone out, and then the network can source that material. Back then, this was 94 or 95. I don't remember what year it was with Aristide. But anyway, so I had covered Haiti since '83. Amongst other places. And there was a bombing at the port that day. Everybody was down at the port. I mean, everybody, I think every CNN crew, we had a lot of crew. It
was a big operation.
In Haiti at that time. But everybody was down there. We didn't have great communication in terms of walkie-talkies and stuff. We didn't have cell phones. We're down there. There was a bombing at the port. Everything's pretty intense. U.S. military is, of course, down there. And because I had covered Haiti a lot, knew that there was going to be a point where, because the U.S. military was there, people were going to try to take revenge on the people who had really tortured and abused them in the past. And I'd been kind of, while I was there, keeping an eye out for signs of that, because I knew it was going to happen at some point. And this particular day, I saw this mob of people running from the port and chasing after somebody. And I thought, as I had thought days prior, this is it. This is, and it turned out it was. It was it. They were really going after people and like really taking revenge. And so, long story short, my sound guy, Tracy, got really dehydrated and was having a hard time keeping up. He was just not feeling well with the heat and everything else. And so I just said, go back, get in the car, go back wherever you have to go, send the car back for me, and I'm just going to go. I'm going to keep on going. So I went by myself, which was, in hindsight, maybe an unwise thing to do in terms of safety. Certainly now, nobody would want you to go by yourself in a situation like that. But there was nobody to tell me I couldn't, so I did. And I also knew that I kind of, as a cameraman, I think we have a skill that I can look at you or somebody and I can get your permission with a look that I can shoot you and that we have a connection. Or I can pick up and pretty quickly, and you can too, that now they don't, like, they're not cool about this thing. And so I kind of figured out who these people were. And of course, back in that day, the media was generally more respected as being impartial and objective. There weren't people with cell phones all around that you would find everywhere now. It was just me. I'm a cameraman. I've got a big giant camera on my shoulder. There's no mistaking that I am U.S. media. So they being the crowd, respected me as such, that I wasn't, I keep hitting this mic, I'm sorry. They respected me as such that I wasn't there. I was a professional. And so I knew who the heads of these groups are. Any mob has a head. There's somebody in charge that somebody else the elders look up to. And I knew that the guy wearing a panda hat was one of the heads. I called him Panda Head. And there was another guy with a red t-shirt. And I knew if I could get their attention, that if they said it's okay, I'm okay. And so I got their attention, they couldn't speak English. I couldn't speak Creole, but we got their attention. We communicated how we could. And so I just kept going with them and kept going with them. And it got to where they actually went to somebody's house and they were going to kill him. They called him out of the house. They tried at a number of different places. They had a list for where they were going to go. And they tried at a number of places, didn't find people or whatever, but this particular guy, they got him outside, and he came out with his wife, and they pushed her back inside the house, and he was drinking something, and they smacked it out of his hand, and I knew this was going to get pretty out of control pretty fast. And so where I say that as a journalist, and I do think that cameramen are journalists, at least CNN cameramen are journalists, camera people are journalists, because we were relied upon to be journalists. We didn't just set up gear and take the shot. We were part of the story. And we had, we were allowed by the producers and correspondents to say what we thought was important. If we got a great element, for example, like, hey, I got this great element, and they would use it. They would look at it, they would use it. So we were trusted to be part of
we were part of a team.
The team, yeah.
That respected each other.
But anyway, so they get to this guy's house, and and so I'm, as journalists, I was going on about, we get to stories after it's happened, right? We can't predict when some tragedy is going to happen. You can, to some extent, with hurricanes, with natural disaster type things, but so often what's reported, what's a big story, is something we go to cover the aftermath of. And this particular day, I'm actually with people who are going to kill somebody. So normally we get to someplace after somebody's been
killed, or
in a war zone particularly. It's happened, we're going to come. And here I am, the only guy from the West, not non-Haitian, that's there. And so I'm saying to these guys, no, 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 no. Because, as I told people afterwards, I missed that day in school where they told me how to watch somebody die. And I think as a human being, you can't just watch somebody die. I can't. And so I kept saying no, 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 no. They did take cinder blocks and tried to smash the guy's head in. Maybe this was wrong to do, but I'm just going on gut, as a human being. And so that particular day, there were times that the mob was so intense that I knew with this one particular guy that the only way I could keep his head from being bashed in was to throw my arms around him. And sling the camera from my shoulder and throw my arms around him and say, no, 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 no. Because me as a person, I can't watch somebody die. I can't idly stand by and watch somebody die. That's just me. Obviously, when we are crew in other situations where there's danger happening, we get the shot first. Our job there is to capture the scene. We get the shot first, and then maybe help. I don't know. I don't know what the order is when it's happening in front of you. But this particular day, I had shot so much of this mob going to so many people's houses that we had more than enough to cover to tell the story. I just didn't have the moment where they were going to kill the guy, which we couldn't use to tell the story anyway. So what happened was that was a traumatic day for sure. And I found one of the other networks had a car there, and I got the guy into the car and got him to the hospital. And I found our driver, CNN's driver, got back to the Montana, where our workspace and where we were staying was at. And that was when some people who were on our team said that, it blew my mind, but said, do you realize that what you did was endanger the entire press corps today? And I thought, what? And they said, you showed the Haitians that the media is there to protect these people that had abused them in the past. I never thought of that.
You were protecting a human being.
I just thought it was a guy. I'm just not going to watch a guy die. I don't care who he is. And so I'm thinking, like, I'm covered in blood, and my head's spinning. Like, you guys have already fed what I shot. Blood splattering on my lens.
I have those images. I have that video.
You do?
Yes. I was, like most of us, killing time at night because we were afraid to sleep in our rooms. And I kept putting crazy videos of Haiti together.
There's a lot of crazy videos
there.
there.
So I did one. I used
with the food riots
Bad
and all
Boys.
that stuff.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Remember the food riots?
At the port that day.
You remember the guy with the 50 shooting at a door, and then
not realizing that the bullet's going to bounce back.
All right, and the photographer gets in front of all our shots. But no, I have that video, and in that video, I think to recall that one of our drivers, his name was Sasha, I believe.
Yeah. Sasha
Sasha
Jaramillo.
Yeah, he learned from Tyrone's book.
He was my driver, Tracy and my driver. Yeah.
Because there is video.
He was a
of
young
Sasha.
kid. He was 19 years old.
He was like 18, 19 years old.
He was 19 years old.
And this kid went and did what you did.
Yeah, he drove us around. He was.
And you can see the knife stuck in the guy's arm. Because I think you're filming when this is happening. It might not be you, but Sasha has a white shirt, and he wraps around this guy.
That was after the thing happened with me, with that. But yeah, I think I had left by then.
Yeah,
I think
a lot of us left after I think they were called the Tom Tom Makuts.
Yeah, Tom Tom Makut.
Yeah,
but we had been there for a month or so, and then, CNN rotated us out or whatever.
I remember when I arrived in Haiti, Rafael Rodriguez, our friend Rafi, he's coming down the stairs of the hotel, and he's shaved his head. He's completely shaved his head. And for some particular reason, I was going in there to relieve him. And for some particular reason, all I could think of was that scene in, Apocalypse Now, the original with Marlon Brando, when he's like shaving his head like that, that crazy scene, man. And I'm like, what did I just land it into? This is crazy, you know? And then of course, I was there for Espanol, so I got sent out by myself a lot. And, yeah, it was, Haiti was,
That day in Haiti, though, I mean, it was particularly troubling to me because obviously I want to keep myself, my network, my teammates, and the press corps safe and objective. So I just did what I thought was the right thing to do by not watching somebody die. But when all of a sudden you see the other perspective that I'd never even considered, like you endangered the entire press corps, all of a sudden you're like, well, you know, have I endangered everybody I know? You know, have I? But so what happened was, I think before I saw you at the pool, where I was sitting there with that bottle of vodka, I was
brought it out.
in the gear room, and I was cleaning the blood off of my camera. And Richard Blystone was in there. He came in there. I think everybody was told to leave me the hell alone. I mean, I didn't know which end was up at that point. And so Blystone came in there and he said, Tai Tai, which was my name in Beirut, my nickname, which means bang bang in Arabic. And said, yeah, Bly. And he said, I hear you've had a rough day. And I said, yes, I did. And I love Bly, great guy. And he had this amazing mannerism. He was a smoker, and he would take his cigarette, and he would pack it by tapping it on his watch. Doop, doop, doop. And I always thought, one day he's going to break the crystal of his watch. He hits it so hard. Every time before he smoked a cigarette, he would bang, 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 and pack it. I'm not a smoker, so I don't know what that does, but he did that. And so he kept on doing that. I'm kind of giving him the eye, like, why are you sitting here? And he said, so I hear that, can I use some wrong language?
Hey man, it's YouTube. We can say anything we want.
He said, I hear that people are giving you a lot of shit about what happened today. And I said, you know what, Bly? I just couldn't watch a person die. I don't know how to do that. I'm not going to stand there and watch somebody die. And then what? Shoot the dead guy? I don't know how to do that. And Bly kept on, thump, thump, thump. And he said, you know what, Tai Tai? If the network you work for doesn't want a cameraman with heart, then fuck them. You don't want to work for them. And that meant so much to me because he understood that I was being a human. That meant so much. And others were, you know, telling me that I was wrong. Others higher up.
Do you think that we had the opportunity to be the way we were because we were a tight group of people that either became really good friends on a personal level? It wasn't just like, oh, I work with him. Like, to this day, I'm still friends with Orly.
Yeah.
You know, and we call him the grandfather, you know. It's like a Rafi, you know. Last time I bumped into David Russ, I hadn't seen David Russ in years, and we bumped into each other in the Dominican Republic on the way into Haiti for the earthquake, and we recognized each other automatically, and we were like all buddies that had just been
And the same with
football.
people from the other networks.
Yeah,
You know,
it happens. It's sort of kind of like a camaraderie that is out there, but I don't see that today. Do you see that today?
I don't travel as much as I used to, so I don't. I mean, I do see it amongst the people that I see frequently. There's always a hug and a hello, or you know, whatever. But I don't travel nearly as much as I used to. So I don't know if it's. I would assume it's going to be the same no matter what, because we're all in the same boat together. And
I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing, like, I remember when we used to travel, we all pile up in one car, 15 cases of equipment. Sometimes had to sleep in the same hotel room, one on top of each other. What I see today is the producer has a vehicle, the reporter has a vehicle, the cameraman has a vehicle. You get out, you do a live shot, everybody goes back into their bubble, and an hour later you come back out, you power on, you do another
Yeah.
live shot. Sometimes you don't even stay in the same hotels, you don't eat dinner together. And I remember those days. I remember the days when we would get together at the end of the shift and we would all go have a beer, you know.
Yeah, that's, I left CNN almost 28 years ago. And so,
You left when?
97.
I left in 98.
Okay, all right, so same time frame. And I was surprised. I mean, I saw this with the Nets before I left CNN. But I would see that the cameraman had his own car, the soundman had his own car, the producer had their own car, correspondent had their own car, and sometimes stayed in different hotels, whatever. And CNN way was that we all, we didn't have much gear, so it fit in the trunk of the car, no problem, with everybody else. And so as I started to work for the other Nets, freelance for the other Nets, I realized that it's not the same way of doing it. Like, people decide which hotel they want to stay at because they like Marriott or Hilton or Hyatt or whatever.
Because they want the points.
They want the points, and fair enough, they do that. I was so used to being in the same place and saying, let's meet at this time, we're going to go. So it's, I kind of got to liking that a little bit, only because I had so much gear. And, a lot of times somebody would get in the car, and I mean, I want to, in between locations, I want to listen to some music or whatever, just to chill out.
Disconnect.
And then somebody would be like, a producer, a lot of times producers say, hey, I'm going to ride with you. And they get in the car. First thing you do is turn the radio down and get on their cell phone, and they're talking. And I'm like, wait a minute. This is my space here, So I kind of like it now, but I think COVID also solidified that, because COVID, nobody was riding with people in cars. Everybody's car became their workspace.
Yes.
And so, the place that people used to sit in my van, now it's full of sandbags. I just put more stuff in there. And if I do have to drive somebody, I have to move all that stuff someplace else. But I think as the business became more technologically advanced, in the sense that, well, for one, we're doing live shots.
You and I had a conversation on the phone a couple of days ago, and you did something that I actually think is really funny, because I feel the same way. I was talking to you, and I was bitching about just doing live shots, because I'm a storyteller. I like to shoot stories, right? And you're like, yeah, that's pretty much all I do nowadays. I do live shots and some interviews. And you know what, Martin? I kind of like it that way, because I'm too old to be gung-ho running around.
Our business has gone away from B-roll. It's live shots, and it's cell phone footage that somebody else took, that you courtesy. And so when somebody says, can you go run around and do all this, I'm happy to do it if you're going to use it a lot, if you're going to use it. But a lot of times it's not used, because I now have to then transmit that stuff, whereas New York has already got the stuff that somebody did on their cell phone, because they already have it. So, the motivation suits the use, I think.
Are we a dying breed?
I hope not. I mean, I think technologically, I think what we do with a lot of the gear is always going to be there. People with their phones don't have lights. They don't have good audio equipment. It's getting better and better, but no matter what, I mean, photography has always been, back in the day when somebody had a flash on top of their camera, you had to supplement the light. You can't come into a shop like this and just shoot and magically make it look like it's lit. So I think there's always going to be a need for what we do on a longer term basis, for long form stuff and for things. Are you going to watch something on the paid channels, Netflix or whatever else, that isn't lit? Maybe, if it was compelling. I used to always say, back when, remember the term broadcast quality? Like, this isn't broadcast quality. But, if somebody shot it with a VHS recorder. It wasn't broadcast quality. It didn't have the engineering aspects of sync at, or black at 7.5 and sync over here. And it didn't fit all that. But if the image was super powerful, everybody would air it.
Yeah.
So broadcast quality was, yes, there's an engineering aspect, standard for what it should be, but then there's also, is this such a great image that we're going to use it no matter what, even if there's, creases in the tape and whatever, we're going to head switch in the visible viewing area. We're going to use it because it's such a powerful image and there isn't anything like it. So I think there's always going to be a need for what we do.
Well, Tyrone, I really want to thank you, even though you said that you were going to be boring, but I thought you were amazing, man. I really liked talking to you. I mean, I could go on and on, but, we got to keep it short.
Yeah.
But we have to do it again, for sure.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. I don't think anything.
You don't, but trust me, I think there's a lot of people out there that want to hear our stories.
They need to get a life.
And then
Look,
we're wrapping up.
We were lucky. We were lucky that we were part of the business when the business was great. Right? So when I went to Central America for the first time, we were there for 6 weeks. It was great. It was a great business for all the networks, for every company, for every person. It was great because the budgets were, I don't know, I didn't make the budgets. But it was a great business to be in. There was a lot of travel. There was an expectation that we do a great job. There was a tremendous, I think, respect, more than now, from viewers watching our work, because there weren't 50 different companies that you could find on your phone that was telling the story this way, that way, or whatever. There was 3, 4, 5.
There's too much noise out there.
So, well, there's, noise for anybody who wants to tune into that particular flavor of noise. But so people relied, I think, more upon the work that we and our colleagues at the various networks and newspapers and photographers and everybody did to get information out there. It's gradually that has changed to where there's less and less respect.
Yeah. Yeah. It is.
But we were lucky to have that, be in the business at that time. I mean, man.
I was very glad to meet you a long, long time ago, because, like I said, we seriously looked up to you. We never told you that, but we did.
Well, you don't have to anymore.